Right, and we are connected. And now I will switch to go live. Hello. Hello. So, hello everyone. I am currently in a bit of a predicament here, so to say. I've got this big video I have been working on for quite a while now. You know, it's been like a whole 2 months since my last video, which was on. Oh man, what was it on? It was on Carrot, right? Yeah. And well, I've been trying to do a massive video for Yu-Gi-Oh this time. I haven't done those in a while. But problem is, I am being a bit self-doubty of my content. So I figured I'd do a bit of I guess preview, a review of it live on stream, see if I can get anyone's feedback on it. Figured it'd be an interesting thing to try. So let me give you some context for the video. This is going to be a history of sorts on rituals, where we're going to go through the theme and break down the main thrust, the key design shifts, and all of the wacky events that happened around it. Right now, there are, for the most part, let me see if I can pull it up. Thank you, Adobe, for being a great. Here we go. Majority of ritual monsters. You know, running in a greedy Adobe program at the same time. Come on. Oh, I see the issue. So, fun fact, whenever I have my graphics panel open in Adobe, it crashes everything else and doesn't let it update. Wild stuff, Adobe. Thank you. I'll put this down here for now. But, so, for rituals, there are, in my opinion, about 7 different key eras of design. Let me full screen this for you. There are 7 major different eras of ritual design. You've got your classics over here. Classics, just simple 1/1 ritual spell to ritual monster, Gishkis. And then you get to Gishkis. Gishkis are wild because they pioneer the idea of recursion. Ritual monsters, in order to work, need to be able to get something back since their cost is so heavy. Once the recursion comes in, it never leaves the mechanic. It can't ever do that, or the mechanic becomes unviable, and that's why we end up with a 5-year period where no ritual deck is really good. Necros come in and pioneer searching on top of that. So you end up with these recursive search piles, basically. And it kind of peaks with Drytron and, I guess, 60-card pile era. And that brings us to the current, where we start to... The current era of rituals really start to fall in line. First time that's ever happened. Let's see, can I get out of this? I've made a mistake. There we go, exit. Alright. So, let's start playing the video, and any live feedback, please do leave a comment. I'm always looking for it. My favorite summoning mechanic has always been rituals, which is a shame, since they are by far the worst. It's just a tragedy, because depending on how you define it, you can count every meta ritual deck from the past 30 years of Yu-Gi-Oh! On one hand. In fact, there are only 133 ritual monsters, compared to the 522 fusion monsters, 479 synchro monsters, 550 XYZ monsters, and despite being the newest mechanic, 437 link monsters. I find it insane when there's always meta decks that can use the other mechanics in super innovative ways. Shadal's, Tealman's, and Ritual Beast. Hold on, I just realized my stream setup is a bit zoomed out because that's what I have to pre-record things on. Let me just... Whoop, there you go. Beast have pushed fusion into such a diverse and fun type of summon. Rituals never had the same luxury, mostly being stuck into fixing the core problem of value neg. To explain how ritual monster design has evolved over the years, let's make it clear how they work on paper. You need a specific ritual spell, a ritual monster, and a correspondingly sized monster or monsters for tribute. This leads us to a few problems right off the bat. You need at least 3 cards of investment, a large number of bricks in your deck, and you'll have absurd consistency issues without proper support. The other cost-heavy theme fusion summon. Okay, let's see, issues I'm already noticing. My breathing is a bit too loud. I'm gonna have to mask that with some music. This is a preview for a new vid? Yeah, it is. It's on rituals. Summoning has innovated away fusion spells, specific materials, and even materials in hand. Synchros only need one specific card of a tuner, XYZs restrict only based on level, and links are literally generic. By comparison, ritual monsters kind of just embrace their restrictions. I love the challenge it creates, but it's no wonder there's not a dedicated ritual dimension in Arc V. That comment is a bit too on the nose for me, but it is, I don't know, it does put into perspective just how rituals are, you know? Like, a joke, these rituals are definitely the least loved mechanic. They do come and go at different points in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, but overall, they're the least common. Technically, the only one that gets more hate, I guess, would be pendulums, but it's only a recent thing. Pendulums come up, they have their heyday, and then they're just never mentioned by Konami again. It's real sad. Which, by the way, there's a running joke in this video that I'm just never mentioning pendulums as a mechanic, because I thought it would be funny. Because, you know, Konami forgot about them, I'll forget about them too. These massive issues with rituals would render the majority of ritual monsters absurdly hard to use from their release in Spell Ruler until their reinvention in 2012-2014 with Gishki and Necros. In the Dark Magician and GX eras of early Yu-Gi-Oh!, you'd see a monster that takes 2 more cards than a normal summon, has weak stats and effects, that would just get Darkhold fissured or even stolen with a change of heart. However, rituals being completely unplayable from the start might not actually be the case, since one particular monster had something going for it. Relinquished, a level 1 0 attack monster with the ability to equip an opponent's monster to it as material. While of course this isn't great by today's standards, that's actually a crazy good effect for 2002. Plus, it was saved by 3 super specific factors. First, it was only a level 1, meaning it could easily see enough monsters as tribute. Second, by equipping a monster as material, it could dodge both face-down monsters' effects and Mystic Tomatoes' effect. Third, and most importantly, this format had an absurd amount of searches at the time. Fun fact, this is a clip from Format Library. This is from one of the public tournaments they did. This is for, not Treasure actually this might be Treasure Format. This is for Treasure Format, and where Relinquished is actually seeing some play in competitive games, which is amazing to see. Not only the basic Senju of the Thousand Hands, but also the Sangan Witch network. Sangan Witch of the Black Forest, by being sent from field to graveyard, could effectively search any card in the game at this. Okay, you know, I will escape. There's a. So this is something very paranoid of me behind the scenes, but I hate to hear my breathing in videos, and I do not know how to get rid of it automatically. So I've just been doing this my entire way through. Because last time when I used to use automated systems to get rid of it, it never worked right, and I could never figure it out. At this point, what I want to propose here is that ritual decks can only function when they can search enough cards to make their absurd requirements worth it. It's a really obvious statement, but it's important because it warps how Konami will design every ritual deck going forward. Ritual summoning is an implementation, a spam search and spam summon theme. Every ritual deck has to rebuild the Sangan Witch network in which it was first viable. Before we move on, I want to make some interesting points about Relinquished meta viability.
Being a ritual fan is rough.
Honestly, it's 100%. Very mixed. Historically, he wasn't that popular, since the refined engines needed to make them consistent weren't a part of the culture yet. But Relinquished has done surprisingly well in modern retro format events for Treasured to Imperial. Now, I can't call this fully meta, since even with these events, the format is just too untested, and the deck's only doing okay. But it shows.
So, let me reveal another project I have been working on. This is extremely nerdy, but I have been working on a history of Yu-Gi-Oh book. Uh, currently, I've got about 50 pages of it done. I'm gonna see how much I go into it, or see how much I can actually get done with it. But so recently, the reason I wanted to do this is I've always, first off, it's the type of book I'd want, but the Internet Archive has been struggling to stay afloat recently, and it made me realize that what history we have online for the Yu-Gi-Oh game is, it could just vanish in an instant. So I wanted to make something of a record of how the game was played, current day deck list like this one here. These are optimized historical list, and also the historical actual metagame of it. It's just something I think we could use, and I can put I'm probably going to end up putting the whole PDF online for free when it's a bit more done. If you want to look through this, it's just in the Discord. There's some really cool stuff in here. But the Sangan and Witch Network is such a fundamental concept to Yu-Gi-Oh! And it comes up in the second ever TCG format. A lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is built around being a toolbox, and that means having cards that get you to other options that will let a skilled player sort through things. And rituals as a theme, due to their nature of being so piece dependent, rituals have to evolve into the Sangan and Witch Network just immediately. And it's something I'm bringing up at this early point in the video, and I'll just keep hammering it home as we go forward.
Shows how rituals can function when set up right, and that's what I want to get at. And it's a good thing Relinquished was here at all, because for the next 5 years, rituals didn't do much at all. There were, of course, new ritual monsters. Most of these were vanilla, and the exceptions were still bad. Lycanthrope.
I need a better way to... I need to memorize my hotkeys. This card... Rashif. This is the coolest, ritual monster I think I've ever seen. I want this to get a retrain so bad. I am surprised it hasn't yet, because it's so cool. The design, it should peak Yu-Gi-Oh!
New ritual monsters.
Oh, by the way, can everyone hear the video playing all right?
Still bad. Lycanthrope, a gimmicky option that got attacked for normal monsters in Grave a bit. It really wasn't going well for the mechanic. Luckily, classic rituals got one more swan song in the DMGX era in the form of Demise OTK. Demise King of Armageddon was a level 8 with a simple yet powerful effect. By paying 2,000 life points, destroy all cards in the field except this
most
card.
Rituals really are.
This is a fantastic effect in general, even today. A non-once per turn board wipe on a boss monster predating Judgment Dragon. What made this deck really tick was some generic ritual support called Advanced Ritual Art, which let a player use normal monsters from the deck to ritual summon. This replaced the cost of tributing monsters with the cost of running vanilla monsters in deck. A different type of
Such
major
a cool
problem.
card.
But combined with the spicy card called Doomdozer, a player could turn this problem into a setup. Doomdozer summons itself by banishing 2 insect monsters from Grave. So a player could send 2 vanilla insects to Grave to summon Demise, wipe the board, then spam out Doomdozers for a quick OTK. If that wasn't enough, you had Megamorph for more attack, since you paid...
This is such a textbook, old Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck list. You see a bunch of random one-ofs you probably shouldn't run, like Magical Cylinder, which I think is for the mirror match. and you have wild cards in here that you should never have been able to put in a deck, like Metamorphosis. Peak Yu-Gi-Oh deck list 100%. This deck, I've seen metamorphosize the Demise King of Armageddon into Cyber Dragon, which is I think a clip in here. It's so good, so good.
Paid life points for Demise's effect. Oh, it's just so cool. Like, this
Actual
deck also got to run
2008
two
footage.
copies of Metamorphosis and a bunch of other
No,
cards
it's not just my
that should have
screaming
probably
quality.
been
It's
banned.
like this.
It's a really cool deck. It had meta relevance, even winning a Shonen Jump championship. The problem was that this deck barely even got to last a month, getting dominated later by better decks. Plus, Demise King of Armageddon got limited in 2009, needing it to be a pretty minor footnote in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Still.
Oh, that was a weird take there. I think I was kind of laughing about it, but I might have to re-record that.
Still, this is our first unquestionable competitive ritual deck, so you can count to 1. By 2012, Konami had only released less than 30 total ritual monsters. It's clear they had considered the mechanic a flop, but the 2009 to 2015 period would also be the birth of the modern ritual deck. This era gave us preparation of rites, a straight up better reinforcement of the army for rituals. It's a search and recursion. Maybe a bit too on the nose, really, but most ritual support from this era would be particularly centered around 3 new archetypes, each pioneering a new staple of ritual design. Jin's highlighting
this is like the 2 most iconic like ritual monsters of the early Yu-Gi-Oh days, and then Jin, the wrong Jin.
effect transferring and tributes from grave.
Bro thinks he's part of the team.
Nishki's highlighting loopability or recursion, and Necros highlighting ridiculous searching, each kind of building on top of each other. Despite coming out first, Jins are best explained later with Necros, so let's start with Gishkis. In 2012, alongside an experimental line of other archetypes themed around Dual Terminal, Konami took their first real step in trying to make rituals viable. Gishkis attempted to solve the ritual monster problem in a few ways. It gave several in-archetypal searchers and a way to cheat out any Gishki ritual monster with only 1 tribute. But rituals had already been using this type of support. What Gishkis really did was highlight recursion, or trying to give something back.
I might actually have to censor this.
Back to the player after using a ritual
Oh my
monster.
god, I probably do.
In particular,
Thank you, 2011 EDO Pro. Gus Kraken was the run for hand loops, yeah. So there's actually 2. This is something we'll get into, but there's a second hand loop. Okay, let's see. Yeah, you know what? We're just gonna... what would be a good censor block to use? I'll just... So, yeah, we have to do it like that. Because, unfortunately... Luckily, Gishki Zelgigas is doing work on the, Yeah, that'll work. We'll be smart about this. I'm not taking any risk with YouTube.
was the ritual spell card Gishki.
I'm gonna save this. For whatever reason, Premiere Pro keeps crashing on me, unless it's already rendered footage. So I've pre-rendered this for the review. Are those dual terminal arcades real? They are. They're really cool. Super noisy, but they do work. They're a really cool thing. Just good luck finding one nowadays. But they would like distribute cards and everything.
Mirror, which let a player shuffle it back into the deck from graveyard to add a ritual monster from graveyard back to hand. This meant a player could effectively ritual.
So, the question earlier, these 2 were the 2 problematic Gishkis. Gus Kraken does hand loops, and Mind August lets you reset your graveyard. So if you're just trying to discard hand, you could Gus Kraken. But if you're doing some stupid, like, Exodia-style deck-out combo, you'd use Mind August.
Summon, as many
That's
times as they
cool.
could search a
Probably
ritual
exclusive to
spell
Japan.
and get a material. This
We
type
actually
of design
got the dual terminal cabinets in English, but I don't believe they were super popular.
would be a staple in ritual decks going forward, albeit with a once per turn clause. Now, Gishkis were also famous.
I hope you guys appreciate that. So this is Imcole's 40 video, and it's just straight from early 2012 Windows Movie Maker. Zilkigas was also the hand looping. Dear God, it's so easy to forget how Gishki was ball busting back in the day. So good news is all 3 builds make it in the
for doing
video.
something with their recursion, and that's hand looping. Their level 6 ritual, Eva Gishki.
Oh, there's a lot of popping in my audio edit. Yeah, I see it. You see that little line there? That is me. Yeah, that's why we listen to these things with working headphones.
Their level 6 ritual, Ivagishki Gust Kraken, will let you shuffle a card from your opponent's hand into their deck every time it was summoned. Combine this with a Constella Ptolemy Mark 7
Monkey
and some
fight,
Hieratics
Trauma,
to shoot out some
Gishki
level
win.
6s, and you have a competitive menace. Well,
So, this is gonna date me a bit, but I actually joined after Gishki. My first format was Necros.
not a major one since it was just overshadowed by every other meta deck at the time, but it certainly was menacing enough to get 2 limits. Eva Gishki Gust Kraken on the September 2012 ban list, and Eva Gishki Mind August on the September 2013 ban list. That second limit comes from, would you believe it, a second FTK that was gaining some competitive ground before it was limited, with the gimmick of looping away your opponent's hand with hand destruction. God, what the fuck, Gishkis? Using Gishki Mind August to constantly shuffle back your own graveyard and continuously loop powerful spell cards. Bonkers stuff. Before we move on, there's a third Gishki loop deck. Now, this one isn't meta relevant, but in my opinion, it's one of the coolest things rituals have ever done.
Best deck ever. Oh my god, it's so cool. I do remember playing against this with a Ghost Trick deck. It's so scuff matchup, but it was funny because if you didn't play the field spell, you could just flip Zilgigas and then attack into it with like a little Ghost Trick guy because it has 0 defense. Oh, it's such a cool.
The goal
deck.
is to loop the level 10 Gishki Zelgigas and then use them as material to XYZ summon the rank 10 trains for more burn damage. It just throws out a ton of damage and goes for an OTK. Like, even more bonkers than the FTK stuff, in my opinion. And it's a testament to just how problematic Gishkis really are. So, rituals have embraced recursive design. While not a complete success, being more problematic than competitive, it is a foundation for what came next. 2014 was a turning point for the game, and the beginning of the modern era for Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole. Duelist Alliance saw the double introduction of high recursion monsters and increased searchability. But before getting into their full modernized debut in 2015, Rituals would get one last gasp with non-once per turn game design.
Okay, this game is so brutal. The Necros player does really well game 1, but he gets skill drained in the 3rd match. It's so mean.
Held of Ultimateness, released in 2014 in the New Challengers. A ritual monster that could negate anything by discarding a fairy-type monster. No once per turns, just a straight-up conversion of hand size to negated cards. While nothing can effectively set this up at this point in the timeline, rest assured, Herald of Ultimateness will be relevant later. In 2015, rituals would be given their updated design, once again in a...
I was playing in Primary, then got a huge break, so I also missed Prime Fish Ritual. Lately came back, but I feel harsh. Pushed back with how spike-filled the community is, especially in my LGS. So a big thing... the best places to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes are just going to be with your local friends. Build your own meta and kind of live with that, but it's... Don't be intimidated by other players. Just beat them a few times and you kind of, enjoying the community like that. But question for y'all viewers, How do we feel about this timeline effect? This is something I'm kind of happy with, but I'm not too sure how it actually views.
A new archetype and a dual terminal theme. Releasing in the Secret Forces, Necros would absolutely dominate the metagame. Thematically, Necros would be wearing armor based on famous synchro monsters that came before, like Trishula. They'd even echo some of their effects. Necros designed its ritual monsters to do two things each: an on-field effect and an in-hand effect. The on-field effects were absurdly good. Some were removal options like Trishula and Bryanak, some were floodgate options like the absurdly strong Necros of Unicorn, and some were disruptions like
Can we get a
Necros
repeat
of
on
Colossus
timeline effect?
and Necros of Gungear.
Sure,
All
it'll
these
come
were
up again.
specifically targeted at extra deck hate, which played into their theme. But it's the in-hand effects that are more interesting here. They're effectively split between protection effects and more searching. On the protection side, you'd have Valkyries who protects from battle,
Is this
Trishula
man
who protects
recording a
from
video
targeting,
live?
and Gungear who
Noted.
protects
I
from
am not
destruction.
recording this
On
live.
the
I am
searching
editing
side,
this
you'd
live.
have Necros of Bryanak, who could discard himself to get any Necros monster, Colossus, who could discard himself to get any Necros spell or trap, and Unicorn, which could recur any Necros card from grave. This meant that by getting to Necros of Bryanak,
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is this graphic? Is this comprehensible? 'Cause I hope it isn't, but it...
you could get to any Necros card from deck or graveyard. A good player could use this to set up for anything. This 2-effect system ensures that ritual monsters can't really ever be completely dead in your hand, an innovation that's common in ritual decks going forward. Mekanko, for example, uses this as a 1-to-1 copy. The spell cards are a combination of the two ritual themes before them. Each Necros
As someone who has played Yu-Gi-Oh at the beginning and now, I have no idea what I'm looking at. It worked. 11 out of 10, don't dare change it.
spell can
Perfect.
banish itself
Perfect.
and the Necros from grave to search another ritual spell, taking the recursion from Gishki in a much more balanced manner. And similar to advanced ritual art, Necros would experiment with using materials from different places, most famously with Necros Kaleidoscope, which could tribute monsters from the extra deck as a material for a ritual summon, commonly dumping Herald of the Arclight to summon.
I just want to point out at the names at the bottom of this here. You just amazingly, you'll just get names I'll recognize from like big Yu-Gi-Oh players. Like there's just Jesse Cotton right there. It's wild how long the top Yu-Gi-Oh players have been top Yu-Gi-Oh
Necros
players.
of Unicorn and get a search. But we also had Necros Mirror, which banished materials from the graveyard, and Necros Cycle, which lets us ritual summon a Necros monster from graveyard. This style of effects would be very common in ritual themes going forward.
All right, hold on. The two most based ritual decks of all time are probably Vendreads and Shino Birds. Love Shino. Love Shino Birds.
And just so I don't forget to mention him, Necros have Shuret, who's both a 1-card entire tribute, but also a search when tributed. Like Gishki before it, most ritual decks tend to get one of these or something similar to make up for it. So, to summarize, Necros mitigate the issues inherently proposed with ritual summoning by letting a player tribute different resources, giving.
I love how just... So the Book of Eclipse and Bull Blader are ways to out Genlock, by the way, with this list. And I love the confidence of just running the two and going, yeah, we'll see him.
The player back resources for conducting summons and searching any specific options the player needs. With some decent effects, Necros would function as our second meta ritual deck. But Necros did actually get a decent chunk of their power from an older ritual support archetype released in 2009-2010, Djinns. Djinns have the gimmick of giving the ritual monster that was summoned using them additional effects. Not only that, but they could also be banished from the graveyard as tribute, really pioneering the tribute from grave idea. Well, most of...
Thank you, Rick... Gotta get my mic out of the way. Thank you, Rick Utig. What is the best meta of any card game I've ever played? There's a lot of metas. For Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm very partial to Hat. It's a great format, but of all time, it gets very hard. I could pick a favorite in each card game, but I definitely couldn't pick a favorite of all time. For One Piece, it really sucks, but it's probably the set one format being the best. For Vanguard, I really love Bruce format, which is like the second and third sets. For Yu-Gi-Oh, for middle era Yu-Gi-Oh, I'd say Hat. And for modern, I really love the I guess it's called Rescue Ace format, because I'm a big Rescue Ace fan.
The effects gens offered were bad or just too limited in scope to use, one problematic card would be the main contributing factor in nuking the meta. Gen releaser rituals would give the ritual monster that use it as material the following effect. While this monster is face up on the field, your opponent cannot special summon. This is straight out of the design space that said Vanity's emptiness was okay. Releaser is an absurdly powerful floodgate that would force every player to have an option to deal with it, which would be more of a problem since even half Necrol's ritual monsters have protection effects. But wait, we could make this even more of a problem by making it consistent thanks to Lavavel Chain being able to send Jin to the graveyard. It was a wild format, but eventually we'd see the ban list crack down on Necros. Initially,
the effect on the timeline feels nice. Maybe get it a bit further so it's not as stuffed on the screen. Yeah, maybe.
Seeing Preparation of Rites go to 1 and Bryanet go to 2. Later, we'd see Jin ban, Lavavel Chain ban, and Short Limited. I hate to say it, but outside of Lynx, Konami is...
I might have just noticed something here. Hold on. Okay, so the timeline might be slightly off-centered. Now I gotta figure out if it bothers me or not.
I hate to say it, but outside of Lynx, Konami has dropped a disproportional amount of bans of ritual monsters when compared to the other summoning mechanics. Legitimately, almost every decent ritual deck would get a hit on the ban list, mostly due to ritual's nature of extreme searchability and recursion, which is kind of the prerequisite to make any strategy in the theme work. After Necros, it would be a while until rituals were meta relevant again, really waiting until 2020 with the release of Drytrons, but until then, there were a ton of interesting casual ritual decks released that played around with how the theme could be used. First up is Prediction Princess, releasing a whole 5 months after Necros, with the gimmick of getting to flip set monsters immediately. And there's not much here outside of being able to cheese a Pot of the Forbidden, or maybe try to cheese out a meme jar.
Okay, Cyberjar was not legal at the time of release, but it is now, so it's really funny. Perfection prevents progress. Yeah. I don't know. As a content creator, I have to figure out how to balance the highest quality work I can do and still release something. I don't know. Personally, as a content creator, I do struggle a lot with valuing my own work. I still don't get why I'm super successful. Not even super sick. Well, no, I am. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm having some issues with getting this video good in my mind, you know? So hopefully this stream helps me confirm to finish it. Plus, it's a little preview for y'all. Also, yeah. So in this section, I'm a bit harsh on Prediction Princess because I don't think they're a very good theme, especially on release. But what I'm trying to do is show gameplay of the deck being used optimally with some newer support to try to not be as harsh on it as I, maybe sound.
Unfortunately, flip monsters are mostly just too slow to really work here. But this opens up a new page for the ritual mechanic. Remember what
I'm a tsundere.
what I said about ritual themes embracing their restrictions? This is one of the ways I meant it. Oftentimes, ritual decks just choose an unfortunate gimmick at random and try to synergize with it. Prediction princesses try flips, Shinobirds try spirits, incantations try rituals, Magic Key try normal monsters, and Mechanco try equips. Every now and then you'll get a deck that's good enough to push through it, or you just accidentally get a good mechanic like sending extra deck monsters to the graveyard like with Dogmatica. It's truly random, but the number of bad mechanics just tends to outweigh the few inherently good mechanics. You have to understand, half of all ritual cards are literal pack filler, and it's one of those weird design spaces that no other theme really tries to get at. Okay, so a lot about this particular section. So as anyone who plays rituals regularly knows, if the information is valid, the aesthetics take a backseat to me. But you want to put out videos you're proud of, and that's cool too. Yeah, I mean it's not just aesthetics. A lot of it is scripting. Like I'll show you guys my my script. Get ready to see a bunch of typos. I'm sorry. Zaboog. But a lot of scripting is trying to get points reinforced as well as I can and not get misinterpreted. A big fear of my content is getting absolutely misinterpreted. Like let me pull up some videos for reference here. But for example, like my Union Arena video, ooh. I'm trying to be, I'm negative and harsh on the game because I think Bandai kind of fumbled the ball in a lot of areas, but I do want the game to succeed, and a lot of people couldn't get that. So when I'm doing a Yu-Gi-Oh video for decks I do like really love and for my favorite theme, I want to be clear, For example, with this segment, when I'm talking about how, every ritual deck is a pack filler, right? Or half of them are pack filler. I mean that in a good way, kind of. Because I'll try to make clear through how I talk about each of these decks, is that by being so restrictive and janky, it makes these themes more memorable and more fun. I hope you're doing well. Did you ever give any more thought to graduate school? I actually got into graduate school. I'm doing my master's in, this is really embarrassing, technology project management. So it's a PM degree. I know. I is not making, I would say it's actively made me a worse person, but it comes with it. But hopefully I can get the master's and use it to get a decent job. With scripts, my favorites from you are the card game reviews. Can't wait for something on the Gundam card game. Yeah, it's looking like I'll probably do something like that. My local card game stores got like invites to go to the big event in Houston. Project managers are absolutely necessary. They are, but a lot of them are not great. That is something I have learned. But back to Gundam. Yeah, I'll probably be doing a video on that, but I need to spend a lot more time playing it before I can give any opinions on it. I can say the art is good, though. Like, Bandai has been knocking it out of the park with art on their alt arts and stuff. That's a nice choice for a master's. Yeah. It's technically an engineering degree at U of H. Bonkers stuff. All right. Back to the video. Oh. Adding to the foreshadowing, we'd see Cyber Angels released in 2016. They're a simple rich... Okay, watching that on a full screen gave me a bit of whiplash. I'm going to figure out how to turn... Oh, God, it's one of these. Ugh. Okay, what's the problem? How much can I get? I don't think I can slow it down a whole lot. Ooh. No. Adding to the foreshadowing, we'd see... Yeah. Adding to the foreshadowing, we'd see Cyber... Okay, that'll be a bit better. I'll save that. Off topic, but what's with the resurgence of adults getting into the Pokemon TCG? They've just released a new mobile app. and it's just an excuse for people to play. Because every card game gets massive an uptick in views when a mobile game comes out. I feel like a bunch of One Piece pros are crossing over to there. Makes sense. It's technically a bigger market. And this is totally conspiracy theory. Don't spread this, but I think a lot of the pros for One Piece's earlier sets are struggling to keep adapting to the meta. Because it's hard to do. By the way, is there something you can expect from the Gundam card game? Do you think it can get big following in the current-ish card game landscape? I don't think it can be carried by its IP. It needs to land on gameplay. It can be carried by its IP in Japan, and really Japan alone. Gundam is, of course, solid size in the US, but it's not enough. What Gundam needs to do is it needs to give itself its own niche, which is something a lot of Bandai card games struggle to do. Digimon got lucky being both the first and having a really unique effect stacking gimmick. One Piece is really generic and just kind of is abusing how big the IP is. Gundam, I think, should lean into the 2v2 thing that they were kind of pushing a bit, that I heard rumors of. It looks fun. What are your thoughts on Blue Eyes being meta in the OCG? It's a good thing. It lets players... it's bait for new players and nostalgic players. It depends on how good of a structure deck it is when it comes to the TCG. For Angels released in 2016, there is simple ritual deck also synergizing with light fairies. Unfortunately, this time the gimmicks would be the battle phase as opposed to mass negates. The downside of being a GX anime archetype. But there were... Is it just me or does young Team Sam look kind of weird? There are a few really cool and just not how I'm used to seeing them. Innovations here that get built on later. The Cyber Angel Witch. Also, his old clickbait had the deck labeled as too sexy. Electrals or no Electrals? Electrals seems like an interesting card game, and I have, I'll be honest about this, I've been offered a sponsorship from them, but I'm so swamped on card games already. There's some other stuff I want to do for other card games, and it's already a lot. I'm trying to get Yu-Gi-Oh out there. I still got to keep on top of One Piece. And I am working on another video for Union Arena, but it's not quite a Union Arena video. It can't say too much about it because I've got to avoid spoilers, let's say, but we'll see if that ever comes out. But Alestrals, if it can stick around a bit longer, I might consider getting into it. But it's a perfectly fine game. I'd have to drive downtown for it because it's Houston. So, Houston's weird. It has a lot of card shops, but the only one that does every game is a big one downtown called Game Guys. It's the one that when you see Konami post results from the regionals, looks like an entire stadium. Yeah. Thoughts on Law Yu-Gi-Oh history? I cannot remember who that is off the top of my head. I've probably seen his videos. What's that? Oh, yeah. Oh my God, I feel embarrassing now. Yeah, I know who the Law is. I've seen some of his stuff. He's really good. So in the Yu-Gi-Oh book I'm working on, I have referenced him. He's in the sources. I cannot for the life of me remember names. Very embarrassing. I just heard that Alestrals is huge among Yu-Gi-Oh purists and that it was enough to make me take a look. Yeah, I mean, it is popular among the Yu-Gi-Oh. You know what? I'll probably get into Alestrals when they release the simulator they just got a bunch of funding for. The Cyber Angel Ritual spell is the first ritual spell to have protection for its monsters when it's in the grave. This is a staple going forward in ritual themes, particularly Voiceless Voice. There's a lot more with that one, that's the whole thing. Cyber Angel Edatin and Cyber Angel Benton both have some incredibly powerful search effects. Edatin can search any ritual spell when summoned, allowing for some unique combos that can span into other ritual themes. Lastly, Benton can search any light fairy monster when tributed. An unrestricted search, and a type supported by mass negates and adding cards to hand? I'm sure this won't be used for problems later on. My favorite bad ritual deck from the Wilderness years is Shinobird, releasing in 2017. Shinobirds have the absurdly niche gimmick of being both ritual monsters and spirit monsters. A double whammy of bad mechanics that's so insane, you just kind of have to love it. Every gameplay I've seen of Shinobirds from this time period is either them winning through their opponent bricking, or getting hit with like a Kaiju Slumber, or an Amano Iwado. I have never seen this deck actually do anything on its own. It's great. So not only do you need to pay a heavy cost for ritual summoning, these ritual monsters would go to your hand at the end of the turn. Now, the deck, of course, was based around doing this. Each of the Shino Barons would be board wipes, and would special summon any spirit monster from the hand or deck, ignoring their summoning conditions. Then, on end phase, they create tokens when they leave the field. This got to tap into the 15 previous years of spirit support, and take away some of the handrails that limited that theme. While it wasn't available at the time of release, throwing out an Amano Iwado that doesn't return to hand at the end of the turn, or board wiping into a Yatagarasu is really fucking funny. At the time though, this deck mostly just tried to use the Nikatama and Aratama engine to brick less, or maybe just use a spicy Yamato no Kami for extra OTK potential. Shinobirds did make use of the crazy searchability design pioneered in previous eras. They even got a recently released generic ritual card called Pre-Preparation of Rites, which straight up searched a ritual monster and a ritual spell card if they mentioned each other. But unfortunately, all of this couldn't save the deck from limited disruptions and somehow not enough searching. Maybe it had something to do with releasing alongside, I don't know, fucking Zodiacs!
Oh god, my ears.
Making it a never really mentioned casual theme. But if you've ever played Shinobirds, they're not forgettable.
Okay, is the fucking Zodiac joke funny? I can't honestly. It's... I don't know. I've learned that my way of doing humor is just to state things and then let the viewer catch on to it. I'm not like a... My voice and delivery is not dynamic enough to get this to work. So I kind of end up having to just rely on funny statements. Rat Pierce should jump scare when Zodiacs is screamed. It's not bad. Also, will there be a One Piece TCG video about it beating the Yugioh curse? So actually, I have a whole thing about this. Look at my amazing file organization. And where is it? Well, that's not it. You didn't see that. So I have a whole video I'm working on for One Piece. And basically, the gimmick of it is the One Piece card game is not a fluke. I genuinely think Bandai has just done enough things right with One Piece that it was inevitable. It was inevitable to go well. And this is off in the distance. There is a list of videos that have to come out first, but it's coming out eventually whenever I get around to it.
Plus, Shinobirds recently got a new wave of legacy support 8 years after they initially released, finally getting more searching, actual disruptions, and more methods of getting to ritual summoning. Man, I need to do a deck profile for this whenever I get the itch to play Master Duel again.
But you might get a deck profile for this.
I did technically skip around a bit. Let's talk about what is technically the most powerful ritual deck from this time period. Blue Eye.
Oh yeah. So the reason I'm skipping around here is because while Blue Eyes came out in 2016, it didn't really become popular until 2017, and most of the topping lists I'm showing are from there. I hope people will understand why I have it that way, but you never know.
Chaos Max Dragon, or in other words, a casual's wet dream. If you're familiar with the 2016 Blue Eyes White Dragon meta, then this deck list.
This is an actual list that top 8'd an event. Not only did it top 8, this is the only non-Zodiac deck in this top 32. It ran 2 Magical Cylinder and 2 Scrap Iron Scarecrow. This man knows something I don't. And I'm also kind of scared because I can't find a video verifying this list, but it's on a trusted site, which is, Yu-Gi-Oh! Top Decks. This is bonkers. I don't get it. I mean, Scrap Iron Scarecrow makes sense a bit. Ugh, bonkers.
List is going to look very familiar to you. Outside of standard Blue Eyes plays, we're trying to summon Chaos Max Dragon, a ritual monster that is untargetable and indestructible by an opponent's card effects. But the real comedy comes from that third sentence. If this card attacks a defense position monster, it does double piercing damage. You'd also have advanced ritual art that achieves the requirements of the summon. It's not a great strategy, but it did get a few regional tops, and some lunatic did top 8 at YCS with this during Zodiac format of all things. It's the only non-Zodiac format in the top 32 that I can find a record of. Still,
oh, that's a misspeak. That's another note. I'll have to re-record that. Sounds like me having a stroke.
Not quite a meta deck, but it's definitely OTK'd its way into Yu-Gi-Oh! History. In 2018, we'd see the biggest fumble out of all the ritual themes in Yu-Gi-Oh! My boys, Vindreads. A TCG exclusive following in the line of BA and Spirals, and this time, the unique ritual focus was actually good. It was to deal with zombie graveyard recursion.
Vindreads, I think, have some of the best artwork in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, the art on Vindred Chimera is 10 out of 10. I think I paid, like, full price for a Vindred core when they first came out, and I don't want to think about that.
Version. But over the 3 sets and eventually the OCG import support, the deck failed to materialize into anything of note. What happened? Well, we can look at the 3 main portions of Vindred's design.
Also, every clip of a set I used that Vindreads came out in, Vindreads did not feature in any of the trailers, and I think that's funny. Vindreads look so good, they're the TikTok food of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah.
Inheritable ritual
Apparently
effects,
the new support can do quite a
graveyard
bit.
spam summons, and battle effects. When a Vindred monster is ritual summoned using a Vindred card on the field, it gains effects depending on what monster is used. This could be anything from a highly desired quick effect banished, to targeting protection, to draws after battle. You could make some genuinely powerful ritual bodies. But, of course, the stronger the effect, the harder that monster would be to get on the field. Some throwing themselves out for free, and some basically being vanilla monsters. Which would be a problem, since the Vindred ritual spells really want to use materials from the grave. And needing materials on the field is always going to be a neg in value. You can't cheat it, you have to take a loss. But this is also where the best part of Vindreads actually is. The easy summoning of its terrible materials. Vindred Hound Horde, Sturgis, Core, and Anima all loop summon themselves out of the graveyard if you can dump them.
So, I think what Vindreads really needed is just a way to give its ritual monsters good effects. They kind of have that with their ritual spells, but they needed more monsters. Because they only have 5, and that's just not enough for the deck.
And the Vindred support is actually very good at doing this. Most of the deck can just discard cards to set this up. Plus, the ritual monsters have fantastic recursion effects, such as Slayer, who, when sent from field to grave after being ritual summoned, searches a ritual spell and sends a Vindred from deck to grave, setting up that next play immediately. The problem is that the majority of Vindred's cards are battle-phased focused. Every ritual monster's inherent effect is either attack or protection focused, which, unfortunately, feels less like Mechanico and more like Ancient Gears. While you can't...
Is that an insult? That is a weird line. Because Ancient Gears are also decent. I'll have to rethink that.
Can OTK sometimes, you can't build a proper board using rituals. So, Vindred's mostly flopped, being known as part of the downturn in the powerful legacy of TCG exclusives. Except for one incredibly stupid, brilliant use. Vindreds could summon out so many materials, it was technically possible to spam enough link monsters to extra link an opponent, even using the ritual monsters as stepping stones to build a bigger board. Almost like a more advanced version of Gishki Rank 10 Turbo. In some regional tournaments, a few very skilled players could take away an opponent's extra deck space, and since it was 2018 during Master Rule 4, this was an auto win if it could be achieved. Man, rituals just have a habit of either being unplayable or absurdly problematic for the entire archetype's run. I think it's just that spam searching and recurring make for problems when applied to non-ritual summon usage, where there's no longer a neg. After these 5 or so failed ritual themes,
okay, a bit of a confession. I do not talk about these the retrains in this video. I don't think they're very good.
themes, Konami decided it was time to juice the pot and design a new wave of ritual-focused support. Something faster to replace the Manju of the Thousand Hand style cards the ritual themes have been using since literally 2002. So Konami released Incantations. These monsters have the gimmick of getting 2 by revealing either a ritual monster or spell in hand, special out another incantation monster from deck and themselves from hand, then search whatever card type wasn't revealed or recur one from graveyard. It's a double whammy that would both fix consistency issues and provide easy materials on field for tributes. And if that wasn't good enough, you could just use the later released Incantation Ritual monster to go for any search you'd need. There would just be one problem. While these monsters were on the field, you could not summon from the extra deck. It's an unfortunate part of
Error.
most of Ritual's history that the spam power the mechanic necessitates makes going into better extra deck monsters as really just being the thing you do. Even less extra deck focused strategies like Necros still like to use the options to set up better boards or out specific scenarios. Konami wanted to fix this by making ritual summons and only ritual summons free, but that's just not how the game is played. Now, of course, some strategies would use incantations given their limited options, but the majority would opt to look elsewhere for more extra deck type combos or find ways to clear the incantations first, which is honestly surprisingly hard to do given how most ritual decks have stupid restrictions on how you contribute, or the mechanic will just stop you from tributing more than you need. It is what it is. Now, a fun usage of this strategy is the Zaborg.
Okay, I would need you guys to vote yes or no on this entire rant section, because I put it in here because I love it, but it's terrible.
Summon. You see, incantations only stop you from extra deck summoning, not tribute summoning. So you could, in a deck like Necros, summon out 2 incantations, normal summon Zaborg with 2 proper tributes, then send the majority of your and your opponent's extra deck to the graveyard, thus taking away an opponent's combo pieces and giving you extra removal options and 3 free searches. It's comedy gold every time, but it is dependent on drawing Zaborg. Let me let you in on a little secret. If you're trying to play this strategy, you should know that Zaborg is also viable through a normal summon of Diviner of Herald. You send Herald from the extra deck to the grave, search Bryanak, use Bryanak search Colossus, use Colossus search Necros Cycle, use Cycle a ritual summon Bryanak tributing Diviner. Use Diviner's when tributed effect to special out Angel 07. This gives you an extra tribute summon this turn. It's not related much to the theme of this video, but it's a combo I came up with, so I'm super proud of it. One more bad ritual deck before we get into the Drytron Hivemind is...
Yeah, okay. It's not, it doesn't contribute anything, but I like it, so I don't know. I think I'm probably just going to put it in here. It's such a cool combo. It's one of my favorite deck in Necros. Or in Master Duel. Keep it, Monarch Gang, rise up. First thing I thought when you mentioned tribute summoning was the Egyptian gods. I suppose you could do that. There's probably a build there. Also, I forgot to put into the graphic, and I think it's funnier that way.
Nephthys, a level 2 spam self-destruction fire deck based on the classic monster, Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys. Yeah, I don't know how they got here either. They're a very fun, interesting deck that would get effects for being destroyed the next standby phase, and would be able to fetch out another level 2 Nephthys ritual monster from the deck when you summon one. Now, to put it into perspective how not good this archetype is, neither sprites nor the new wave of Fire King support could make this decent. But Nephthys. Okay, now we are at the part where I haven't edited yet. So as you can see, there might be a bit of work that needs to get done. It's so long. It's so grindy. I'll probably be in the editor's mind until probably about Thanksgiving. Maybe after. I don't know. I think I need to spend some time with my family, you know. But that is this video so far. That's the first 26 minutes or so. I'm pretty happy with what I have, but I don't know. I keep wondering if I can do more. I really like the graphics I did for like Vindred, for example. Like, where is it? Like this, and I'd like to do more for other sections. I'm just not sure what, because I have no idea what Shinnabirds need for like that, for example. I don't know. But one thing I do want to share with you before I go anything else is this last part of my script here that I'm very proud of, because it ties the video together. Again, mind the typos. That comes with my scripting. I don't. Most of these are not meant to be shown to other people, so I don't. As you can see, my sources are just. I'll have to compile those later. It's gonna take forever. But so I go through it. I talk about Hungry Burger, which is peak game design, and voiceless voice, which are they are a textbook competitive deck. I don't know how else to describe it. But the ending section goes something like this. And what a way to end this retrospective of the ritual mechanic. It only took 25 years for this janky summon to fall in line with the rest of the game's design. Rituals have always tried to do their own thing. Its restriction of being so heavy on card economy morphed the strategy into a searching powerhouse, before any other summoning mechanics could catch up. By mostly being relegated to pack filler for a large portion of its history, Rituals have touched the most bad mechanics and pioneered them in ways that Links never could, by embracing these themes on their own terms through their restrictions. Shinnabirds work because they commit to the bit themselves and bounce back to the hand. Mechanical only work because they're dependent on using equip spells in interesting ways. Demise King of Armageddon and Blue Eyes Chaos Max feel so cool to play because their summoning mechanic is inherently kind of harder than it should probably be. Even when the themes are meta, the ritual DNA can't leave the mechanic entirely. Necrons are defined by needing obnoxiously specific levels to ritual summon. Drytron have to do stupid longer than necessary combos to dig for each individual piece of the ritual summon. And even Voiceless Voice have to deal with multiple card setups and higher than average cost in a format where card economy has evolved far past that. It's why these decks feel so unique. In a format where we've been removing more and more restrictions and innovating away the inherent flaws of each mechanic, ritual summoning fundamentally can't, and it's just better off for it. Not in a meta sense, God no, but in that memorable, fun to innovate, fun to collect, and just fun to play kind of way. Yeah. It's just a really good wrap-up point. I really like this script. It's the reason why I went through and redrafted a bunch of this. Also, there's our timeline draft. Any suggestions for those of you who've been watching want to make to the video so far? Well, I don't know. Personally, yeah. So more graphics, I think. I think I think I'm actually I get my message across pretty well. There are some speaking mistakes. I think I'm probably gonna have to go back and correct. Oh, I might leave them. A bit lazy. Rap here, jump scare. That's good. Okay. I'll have to finish up the other half. Yeah. Well, yeah. All right. That was a good review. Now what? Hmm. I'm trying to think. You guys want me to play some games? I don't really want to go full editing because I'm terrified it's gonna crash, especially since I'm using all the RAM, or not RAM, but I'm using all my processing power for streaming. Could play some game. Want to see some Risk of Rain 2 gameplay? Nah, no one wants to see that on my main channel. Uh, I think I might just call it here. This was a good stream. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I think I'll see you next time.